So thanks for joining today. We're going to run through our P6-Scrubber, and we've got a few new features just put in the last few weeks that we'll let you know about. So as mentioned, we will record the webinar and share it afterwards. So feel free to go ahead and chat in any questions as we go. I'm Nicole Jordan. I'm the founder and CEO of Emerald, and today I'm actually joining you from Montreal. I'm visiting my dad here in Montreal, and I will do the lead-in, and Sue Familia is joining us from Wyoming, and she's going to do the heavy lifting. She's going to show you the software in action. So let's talk about why we built P6-Scrubber. So some of the common struggles that we have when we're running or trying to share the environment, or if we receive schedules from outside companies. So we might be the owner and we're getting schedules from our engineers and our construction groups, our contractors, our construction managers. And we need to bring them into our P6 environment. Now, if you've been in that situation, you know that you may receive data elements that you don't want in your P6. So it starts to do what we call polluting the database. So that can become a big problem, especially if you have any collisions in those imports. And the importing is usually XERs. It could be XMLs, sorry, I get it mixed up, XMLs. And it could be from Microsoft projects. So those are the most common importing methods that we see. Now, each one has potentially can start loading data into your system that you don't want, okay? Now, P6 has some controls on the importing, but we found that they're not nearly strong enough. So it becomes a bit of a frustration, especially as I mentioned, if you have collisions. So I thought I'd start off today with a quick question. How do you deal with P6 projects from outside companies? So I'm just going to ask a quick question. If you feel like sharing how you guys do it, that would be great, and I'll show the results real quick, and then we'll keep going. So the three methods, we've found a few methods that our clients have been using. So they have a separate database maybe where they import and then they clean things up and then they take an export and bring it into their production. So that's the first one that we've seen some of our clients do. It's pretty time consuming. Others modify XERs. Now, that's dangerous. We've seen people modify XERs and actually corrupt the import and bring it in, and it messes up the database. So we had one client that screwed up their whole database, and we were lucky we were able to help them recover. But that violates some of your license agreement with Oracle, so it's dangerous. But people do it, as you're going to see, I'm going to share. People do it. Okay, and then import them right into their production and clean it up. Again, these are what we've seen as the most common. Okay, so we can see on the attendees today who responded, a bit of a mix. Now, again, there's dangers of all of those approaches, and we have experienced clients get into problems with this. So that's the main reason we decided let's make the scrubber, okay? Maintaining secondary databases has a cost. Doing the import, cleaning it up has a cost. And what we were trying to do was help get rid of that cost for our clients, minimize it, and give them a better, more reliable, more predictable solution. So that's why we built the P6-Scrubber. Now, we also had clients that wanted a way to take a look at the import, if you will, and see whether some of their requirements were being fulfilled. So for example, certain resource naming conventions, perhaps, or activity code naming conventions, things along those lines. So that was a secondary benefit to putting the scrubber together. And Sue's going to show you how we show that to the user, what kind of data is coming in, okay? And some of you might be aware we have a similar tool that goes more in depth at looking at the quality of a schedule. That's our P6QA tool, okay? So this is sort of taking advantage of some of the parts that we already had in QA, putting part of it in Scrubber. So these were our main reasons why we built the Scrubber. Now we have some clients who spend a lot of time importing schedules. So second question I thought I'd throw out to the group here today is, how much time do you spend cleaning up each month? Now, of course, this is going to widely vary, okay? It depends on what kind of projects you do. But it's always interesting to see kind of what people are doing. Now, some of you may have seen on our website that we share the statistics over the year of these polls, okay? So that's something that Shannon could maybe put in the chat room if you're interested to see kind of the results over our webinars over the years, some of the results. So that's another thing that we do with these polls, is we share those out once a year, usually, just to gather up more statistics. So it varies, of course. So we have some clients who do a lot of importing. I'm talking about 50 to 100 schedules in a given month. So of course, if you've got to clean those up every single time, that's going to be a lot of hours each month. If you do less, obviously it's going to be less. Now, another thing I should highlight is if you're a contractor and you want to pre-clean your schedule before you give it to the engineering firm or the client, this tool will help you do that. So you would export it, you would clean it up in the Scrubber, and then you would give it to them. Okay, so that's another thing that I want to highlight. This is not just a tool for an owner or an engineering firm to scrub when they receive. This can be a tool for a contractor when they're giving it out. Okay, because we've got contractors who like to use P6 for resources, for costing, for multi-currency costing. We've got a lot of great things that we've done on those fronts, and if those things are interesting to you, jumping in on our P6 calculator webinar could be good. But you don't necessarily want to share that. If you're on a lump sum contract, the client doesn't necessarily need to see all that. So rather than getting an export and cleaning it up in XER, which is violating some of your licensing, this could be a fantastic way to do it. And it also would give the ability to a senior scheduler to get the definition set up. And again, Sue will show you that. And then someone a little maybe less senior, less experienced with P6 can make sure they scrub it properly. Okay. That's another thing to keep in mind as you watch Sue show you the software. So let me explain how it works, and then I'll turn it over to Sue, and she's going to show you in action. So the way we've built the tool is we allow you to create a scrubbing definition. So it's similar to a layout or a report sort of idea that you've probably used in P6, where you set up the data elements you're going to look at, how you want it to scrub the data. And essentially in scrubbing, we have three things. We have get rid of it, which is what we call scrubbing it, cleaning it up, which could include remapping it, so merging, which would be like a merge, and keep some stuff and clean up some others, essentially. Okay, so Sue is going to go into detail and show you those functions. So once you set that up, you don't want to have to do that every time you get a new file, because there should be a lot of overlap from one XCR to the other from the same, let's say, contractor in this example. So you get to set up what we call a definition, a scrubbing definition. Then, of course, you select the project or projects that you want to run this on. So you can run it on one XER, one XML, one Microsoft project, or you could do multiples as well. Okay, so let's say you have a contractor that's working with you and they're doing 4 or 5 different projects and they've got a weekly file that they're sending you. You can do them all at once if you want to. You don't have to, but you can. So that functionality is there. And then we have the data checking. Okay, so over the last few years, we've all been bumping into the POBS file, parts of the file being massive. We've probably been bumping into risk types being massive. So of course we take care of those blips that have been going on for the last few years that I think finally Oracle has caught up. And I think the newer versions don't have those things. And we deal with other data elements, things that are important like calendars. You don't want any colliding in calendars because that could change your schedule. And then of course the heavy lifting. The heavy lifting is around user-defined fields, codes at all levels, whether they're resource codes, activity codes, project codes, etc. Cost codes, not everyone uses costing, but those that do, you want to make sure the cost code mapping is tidy. And then we've got additional validations, things like project ID structures, project naming conventions, and things like that. Okay. So Sue's going to do a deep dive. She's going to show us the tool in action. And while she's doing that, absolutely, if there are any questions, throw them in the question room and I will tackle them as she's doing the demonstration. So I think I'll hand it over to Sue. And I'm transferring it now, Sue.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to share my screen so we can see what I'm doing here as I'm working with P6-Scrubber. Okay, so first of all, I kind of want to show you some of the issues that we find with importing outside XERs, XMLs, or Microsoft projects. First of all, if I look at, I kind of have a database that has been, a lot of imports have been done to it without scrubbing some of these items before import. And the first that can happen is that when you import, as you can see, I've got my structure here and I've got some parent resource items that have, of course, things underneath them. However, when you import, a lot of times you don't, especially with an XCR, you don't have that control of where to put those resources that are being imported in. So you can see here that I've got a whole bunch of resources that I am not sure where they came from. And, it looks like some of them may have been brought in with several different XCRs, and they're all a kind of a jumble down here, where they have not been put into a parent. They haven't had any type of prefixing or anything to them. And so they're just kind of lined up. And so you don't really know what XCR or what project they're associated with. And when you import, this is what happens. It comes in and it just simply lines them up and doesn't put them in any type of structure at all. And not only do I have these ones up top here, but I also have these ones down at the bottom. And so this can become very, very messy and not very useful in your database. Now, another thing that we find is with our activity codes, that come in, especially those global ones, we can, the same thing happens. We have, let me just bring this out. We have quite a number that have come in here, and we can see that we don't there's really no rhyme or reason to them. Again, no structure to them at all, and they've just been brought in at the global level, and we have a whole bunch that, possibly here where we have this TES, those came in with a particular project. Maybe some aren't appended at all, and we don't really know where they came from and what they belong to. um, that can be a problem, especially at your global level, because you don't want these types of codes to be um, just brought in and slammed into your database when you have perhaps some reporting that you do on particular codes and things like that. You want to keep these clean, so in your database you have a very controlled code library that is important to just your organization. Ideally, you'd want to push those down to the project level in this case, so that you could keep those contained. Because I mean, these go on forever. I have so many codes that have
That's
been
our
imported.
database. That's our demo database.
So you can see that I mean, these really mean nothing to
Yeah.
us. But if they do mean something to the activities in XERs that maybe we have imported. But if we could put these at the project level, we would know, okay, these ones at the global level are ours. They're ones that we know what are going on with. We know what type of dictionaries should be associated with these. And then the ones that are just for those imported projects can be actually just maintained and contained at the project level. So to be able to roll those down and to put them at the project level is something that's very, very helpful.
I think the other thing to highlight is so many of our clients in the last, I'd say, 2 years for sure, are moving more and more into our P6 reporter tool. Being able to grab data and push it out to Power BI or Tableau or business objects, that sort of reporting. And that's where this database, keeping it clean, knowing the levels is even more important. So it's not just the effort in scrubbing that you're dealing with, but keeping that reporting tidy, your database tidy, for reporting that you need to do. And if you're doing self-serve reporting, right? Meaning you're pushing the data out and people are looking at it without you having to give them a report. You've got to keep your database really clean so nothing strange comes out in the management reporting, which is so embarrassing. If you've ever produced a report and you realize you did it wrong, you don't want to have that happen. Okay, so that's another key thing that this brings to the table. Thanks, Sue.
Sure. Another thing that with activity codes is, when you have a dictionary and you have things coming in, you can see here that as things were imported, I have the same value or description on a lot of these, but my value is duplicating. So if I were to ever, try to report on, let's say, Richard here, I've got 3 different values for him. So that's going to be something that's going to be, challenging to try to make sure that I get everything for Richard if I'm trying to report by my schedule updates. So you can also keep your dictionaries consistent, and so you're not going. You're able to control the importing and where they are. If there's any duplicates, we can remap that to make sure that when we bring something in with maybe Richard here, we make sure that we're choosing the correct value in our database already. Another thing that happens is that on calendars, again, we have a whole bunch of calendars here that have come in, and these are at our global level. Well, for your own global calendars, you want those to be your calendars for your organization. Those are ones that you actually use for your projects. And bringing in global calendars um, from an import not only gives you all these kind of a mess that comes in, But you'll notice that, pretty much everyone has a standard 5-day work week. That's delivered with P6 when it's installed, and quite a few companies use that. However, the way that you have your calendar, in this example, your standard 5-day work week, um, defined does not necessarily mean that it's defined the same way for that XER that's being brought in. And the problem with that is that the definition of that XER calendar will overwrite a calendar of the same name in your database. So it becomes an issue as to, okay, which calendar am I actually using? Is this the one I'm expecting that has been ours all the way along, or did it get overwritten and now it's messed up all of my schedules where I have that applied? So being able to roll those down to a project level is extremely important, because number one, you're gonna keep your global list down to just your organization's calendars, and you are not going to risk that overriding of a calendar of the same name when you bring it in. So calendars, being able to roll those is extremely important. You don't want to perhaps mess up your projects by overriding a calendar that's being used in there.
Yeah, and worst thing here is, let's say I import and I overwrite. I could mess up Sue's schedule and she doesn't even know I did it. So that's even worse. And we've had clients in that situation because a standard 5-day work week in Canada has different holidays than the holidays in USA where Sue is. So this is another hugely important reason why we built Scrubber, so that you can clean this stuff up, make sure it comes in properly, no bad, horrible surprises. And worse than a surprise is you don't even know it's happened to you, right? And then all of a sudden your schedule isn't coming out the same. And you're spending maybe many hours trying to figure out what is going on here, what happened. So we've had clients do that. So these are the reasons that usually we build a software tool because one of our clients has asked us to solve this problem, right? So this is where this came from. So that's a key thing here. So go ahead, Sue.
Sure. And in more recent versions, we do have the ability to control some of these things. However, especially in the case of an XER, I'm just going through the import wizard here. When we get to this configuration about how we want to bring in some of these data items, we find that while it gives you some control, it does not give you enough control. um, you can see that we've got our activities, we've got our global codes, which are some of the big things that you want to deal with, especially on importing. We don't have options to really control well what's happening with those. So if we have our assignment codes, we can choose to not import them, we can choose to insert them as new ones, which is possibly going to give you some duplicates in your dictionary. You can keep what's existing there, or you can update the existing. However, the control on renaming them and trying to keep them uh, kind of identified with the project that it's being imported with, you just don't have that type of control, especially on an XCR. Um, with your the calendars, there's no option there. We can keep the existing, we can insert a new one, we can choose not to import, which might affect our schedule. um, but you don't have a way that you can identify it after import, so that that came in with a particular XCR. So you have the same issue with user defined fields. You just don't have that type of control where you could maybe prefix them, where you maybe want to remove some but not others, things like that. So really, I mean, we do have some uh, configurations that we can do upon our import, but they really aren't enough to
Yeah.
keep your environment clean and working the way that you need it to work, especially for that corporate reporting that you're trying to do.
Yeah, exactly. The granularity is just not there. And that's what she's going to show you. Scrubber has super granularity, so you can make sure you can do what you need to.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to start launching into a database while I speak about the rest of P6 Loader, what you came for, suppose here. So let me just get this launched, and then I'm going to go into the tool itself so we can talk about it. So with P6-Scrubber, we are able to have a live version that actually connects to your database. So you can see the values that are in your database that are existing and perhaps remap it to that value, or even decide, oh, I don't want this to come in because, it's just not something that we need. So we can connect that to several different databases. So if you're working with multiple databases, you can actually choose the database that you're going to import into, and see what kind of values are there, and which can help you out as you build your definition. So I've logged in here, and first of all, I have kind of on my left hand side here all pieces that I can control on my import. So I've got my project codes, UDFs, IDs, and I'll go into these in depth in a moment. I have my resources and controlling my resources, my calendars, my roles, even cost accounts, and controlling my OBS, my responsible manager, on my project when I actually import it in. So as we're going along, for instance, in our activity codes here, um, we have different types of validations within these. So I could enable the validation, and I could start building my definition from scratch. So I could add my, let's say, my activity code name, decide what level that's going to come in as. If it's a project activity code, I could put that project ID, and then I have on in every case, I select what I want to do with it. Do I want to scrub it, take it out of the XER, or do I want to keep that? And one great thing is that I could actually go in and I can see if I have that, and I can choose. Maybe if I want to remap it, or maybe I already have it in there, I can match that. So if it matches, it's going to tell me right away with this little check mark. If it is a global, I have the option to roll that down. So I could come in and say, hey, I want to roll this down. Now, in conjunction with especially codes, I have a dictionary that is involved with this. So I could actually add my dictionary values. And if you're doing this by scratch, we've tried to make this a little bit easier for you. We all know that we could potentially have a lot of values in our P6 environment. Oh, looks like I didn't get put in there very well. Sorry about that. But if I did have a value that I wanted to, a dictionary that I wanted to bring in, I can actually copy that from my P6 database, and I can uh, copy it actually right from my dictionary, and I can paste it in here. I can remove the header that's in there. I can take out the columns that I don't need, and then I can actually add those in what we call a bulk edit. So bring them all in at once. I could also do this from maybe an Excel spreadsheet as well. So I have options on doing that. However,
So what Sue's showing you, just to make sure it's clear, is let's say I'm starting up a new program and I know the code values my team must report on. I could start to preempt what I'm going to receive or what I'm going to scrub if I get an XCR in a month or 2 months. Okay, so that's what she's showing you here. So that's one option. And then she's going to show you the other option where she gets the XER and reads what's already in the XER. So we have both approaches, just to make sure that's clear as to why she's building a dictionary or a scrubbing definition prior to receiving an XER. Okay, so well in advance. This is one option. We've done this with a few of the clients when they're starting up a new program. Okay.
okay. So now I can show you my vendor. So let's say I need to populate this vendor here uh, with dictionaries. I can go right into my P6. I can copy this in, and I can go back to my uh, list here, and I can paste that in my bulk edit. So I'm able to remove that one column that I don't need the colors for. Um, if you have the header that comes in, you can remove the header, and then I can apply this, and it's going to bring in all of those values for me. So as I want to build out something, if I wanted to do that from scratch, I could certainly do that. Now, alternatively, and probably an easier way, I'm just going to clear out my items that I put here. Um, you can go in and actually import a file that you're going to be cleaning or scrubbing with P6-Scrubber. And when you select that and import it, it's going to bring in all that information of what we have defined along our left-hand side. So let's say, for instance, here are my activity codes. This is what is actually contained in the file that I have, and I can see that I have ones that are new that are coming in. These are ones that were not defined previously on maybe another definition, if I have a definition applied. And it's also going to flag when I've got a warning or something that's not matching with my current database. So when I hover over those ones that are giving me that warning, it's going to let me know that, hey, there's something that's going on. It doesn't match what you have in P6, so you might want to take a look at this. So this is telling me it can't find that matching value, but maybe there's some suggestions that it might want to give to me. Now, if I wanted to go ahead and create this, it's not currently existing in my database. I could simply go over and I could say, all right, I've looked at this and I do want it. I do want to handle it the way that I have defined on this particular mitigations, in this case, code type. I could say okay, and I could star out. That's going to indicate to P6-Scrubber that I have looked at this. It is something that I want to bring in. Now, I can see I still have problems with this. So if I hover over it again, it's going to tell me, well, your dictionary, you don't have a dictionary, that you have values that don't match in your dictionary there. So then I can also open that up and decide what to do with each one of these dictionary values. Now, in both cases, let's say in the case of my activity code, I can go in here and here's I don't have mitigations in there, but I have something called SCR mitigations. Maybe I want to remap it to that particular code value. And if I select that, it's going to go ahead and remap that for me. And you can tell that I have some values in that dictionary. And now that I've changed that, it's telling me that those match as well. So alternatively, if I have defined a set of values for both my code type and my dictionary, I can choose that any other subsequently, when I scrub other XERs using this definition, what I can do is I can choose to remove anything that I don't have defined in my list. So if I click this, when it scrubs it, if it goes in and it takes a look and it has something other than, let me just close this down, other than mitigations, vendor, work type, etc., that are here, I can choose to just remove those. Anything additional that comes in, just take them away. The same thing goes with my dictionary. I have that same option at my dictionary value level. So if I have a set dictionary for a particular code, I can say anything else that comes in that does not match that, I want to remove. I want to get it out and not import that in because I don't want to pollute what my definitions are. Now, we also can control our user defined fields. And similarly, although they don't have values associated with them, I can see whether it's going to match in P6. I can choose, what I want to do with it. Do I want to just completely remove that? Do I want to keep it? Do I want to maybe remap it? I have that option as well. And again, we do have this lookup here, and I'm just going to do it. So, and so it's going to, again, give me suggestions of other things that are close to what this UDF is named, this user defined field. Now, another thing is maybe you have certain subject areas where you do have user defined fields, but you don't have them at other subject areas. I can choose by subject area whether I want to remove those, no matter, as I'm bringing something in, regardless, or I can choose to keep them and take a look at them um, individually as they come in. So I have the same control with user defined fields, except for it's in the subject area, as I do for codes. So I can choose to totally remove a particular set of UDFs.
Yeah, so right there, she has one that's called TES expense, cost over budget. If you guys don't use expenses, you do not want that data in, you just say scrub it. And then every time you read this XER, it will just ignore that stuff. It won't bring it in. Okay, so that's what she's trying to explain there. Okay.
Right. And if I had in this case, I've decided to scrub this expense user defined field. But I don't want any additional ones coming in. By check
Exactly.
marking this expense up here, it's going to remove any other expense user defined fields that come in as well. So we can control that. We don't need to have that expense come in. We're not interested in that piece for my XCR that's going to be imported. I can choose to just totally remove any of them as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're a contractor and you use expenses, but you don't want to give those to the client, you just have this always scrubbing expenses. So again, it's not just receiving, it's also sending it out. It works so well, saves so much time, and gives you that extra level of confidence that it's been cleaned out. Because when you're doing it manually, you could miss doing some of the data elements for sure.
Absolutely. Now, when we talk about resources, we have some options in our resource area here. And first of all, we're going to get that checking of our data. Do we have a resource that is similar, or is it actually uh, being used already? Um, I can look for my suggestions. Maybe I want to remap this to something different. Um, and it's going to give me suggestions of what's in my database, and I could go in and I could remap those. I could also, if I wanted to prefix them, I could pick and choose which ones I want to prefix. There's also an easier way that I'm going to show you just a little bit later that I can prefix all of them that are coming in. I could do it one by one if I wanted to, but I have a better way to do that as well, and I'll show you that in a moment. Now, another thing I can do is I can actually, up here at the top, I have that option of what parent resource I want to land these in when I import this file. So that's going to give you the control to keep it your resources kind of tidy and bring them in at a level where you're going to be able to kind of group them and see what they were brought in for, where they're being used, and do that. So what I can do is I can open up my resources and I can see any parent that any resource out there. So I could make it a parent of anything. So I can go down, maybe I wanted to bring it into, oh, let's say this one here. Um, it's go- P6-Scrubber is going to go out and it's going to make this the parent of all of the resources that I'm bringing in. So I have that control of where in my dictionary these resources are going to land when they're imported. I have codes and UDFs as well that I can handle in resources. So those work the same as the codes and UDFs that I showed you above. We also have the control of our units of measure, because a lot of times we already have units of measure that are defined. So I can see this M3 is not something that is that's defined in my database. So if I clicked over here, I could see, oh, I'd have it, but it's capitalized. Now, when I click this, it's still giving me that I have a warning, and that's because my name isn't the same. So I can go in and blank that out, and it's going to give me the name that it maps to. So then I can choose my name. Now I'm not creating a new unit of measure that means the same thing as a unit of measure I already have defined. So I can even keep my units of measure dictionary nice and tidy.
Yeah, and if you run any graphics off of this, you know that you've got to keep things aligned. Otherwise, your charts and graphs and histograms won't come together properly. So that's a big one.
Absolutely. Now, our next subject area here is calendars. And I talked a little bit about how calendars can go in and override a calendar of the same name. So in most cases, I would say we would want to roll those calendars down. So we can go in and we could roll those calendars down, and those are going to go down now, be pushed down to that project level where we can maintain those calendars and actually, still have them within our project itself and still be used in that project, but it's no longer going to pollute, if you will, the project or the global calendars there. I could also again rename them, remap them, whatever. I can also say that anything that's not defined here, when I bring in an XER and I scrub it, if it's not defined, I also want to roll down those calendars too. So I don't have to come in every single time, take a look to see if there's a new global calendar coming in with an XER by importing it. I can simply say, roll down all those calendars. That's just to be safe. I'm going to roll all of them down. Now, we had a client who was using P6-Scrubber who wanted to just see what project calendars were in their XCRs when they imported it. They got a lot of XCRs from uh, a contractor, and they wanted to be sure that when they defined their project calendars, that it was bringing the calendar in that they expected. So this we actually added this for one of our clients who was using P6-Scrubber and said, we would really like to see this. So we have that informational piece for project calendars here. We can also take a look at what resource calendars we have coming in. So let's say I have this calendar coming in, and this is not the calendar that we want it to be mapped to. I could certainly come in and find a calendar that it would map to, and I could choose it, and then it's going to remap that resource calendar for me as well. So we can control those resource calendars. Roles work very much the same as our resources. Again, it's going to match them up. We could rename them. We can decide, what we're going to do with them. We can also take this roles and we can land them in a an already established parent. So you would essentially create a parent in your dictionary and then choose where you wanted those roles to land in your dictionary. So again, a little bit more control about where they're going to actually be brought into when you import. Cost accounts work very much like user defined fields. We can choose whether we want to keep them or scrub them. We can see if they're matching. Um, we could remove extra ones as they come in that are not defined. And so we have that level of control that we're not going to maybe collide with cost accounts that we may have defined in the same way. We can actually control where those are going and what they're hitting. So we don't essentially or potentially bring in information that is not ours on those cost accounts. So our reporting stays consistent and we aren't reporting on someone else's costs if when you're importing. Then I have my OBS here, and this is allows us to actually define what responsible manager we want to be assigned to this project when we import it. So we don't have to worry about going back in after an import and maybe changing responsible manager. We're not going to create new responsible managers that don't have anything to do with our organization. We can actually remap that and have that be changed on our XER. So when we import it, we're not importing new OBS elements, and we can also assign them properly to where we are actually how we want to control that responsible manager on our project. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you now is our simple scrub area. I told you there was an easier way to put a prefix on our data. So when I uh, come in here, I can see that I have several different subject areas that I can handle. I can choose not to import any code if I want to. If I want to control them, like I did, like I showed you at those other levels, I can certainly control them there. But if I choose not to, that I don't want any of them to come in, I have that option to do that. I can also put a common separator. So let's say I want to do a prefix, and then after every prefix, I want to be a dash, and then the data element name would come in here. I could do that, and let's say I want to append the or prefix these with SCR in an example. Also, on my global codes, as well as my calendars, I can choose to roll down anything that comes in this simple scrub area here. So if I have more of a blanket type of rule that I want to impose, and I can do that here. So I can prefix, I can roll down, I can choose to not import. And I have that for all these different subject areas so that if you do just want to do a very quick handle everything, every data element in this manner, um, if you wanted to prefix them, like I said, or if you wanted to roll them down or not import them, we do have this simple scrub area that we can utilize for those types of scrubs. So you don't have to go in and do all of those and do each one of those definitions. Maybe you have something that's much simpler on how you handle your data and how you want it to look when you come in. This would be the area that you would do that with. Now, once I have a definition all out there and it's ready, to be used, I would go in and I would save that definition. So I can save that definition out here. And so I would go save as, and I'm just going to put that this is the webinar example. I could put some notes in. And I have some options about how I want to save this definition. Maybe it's a personal definition that I don't want, nobody else needs to use it. I could make it a personal definition. Then I'm the one who can see it, and no one else um, can take a look at it, and it's just mine. Maybe I belong to a team, and that team is perhaps maybe for a particular contractor, or that team is going to be sending out to an owner. Because remember, you don't, it's not necessarily just when you import other people's. Maybe you're sending this out. You're a contractor who's sending this to an owner, and you want to, scrub data items out prior to sending it. You can assign that to a team, and you can pop it open and decide which team you want to share that with. And then that team is also going to be able to use this particular definition. Or I can choose to, of course, share it to everyone else. So anyone who comes in and uses Scrubber is able to use that definition. I can make it global and do it in that respect. Then I could say apply. I'm going to make this a global definition. So I'm going to go ahead and apply this, and it's going to go out and save it. I can tell it's saved because now I can see my webinar example up here at the upper right hand corner. This is the definition that is applied right now in my P6-Scrubber area. Now, if I had come in and I had a particular, and I have a definition already defined, and I just want to scrub, I can go into that same area and I can choose which definition I want to use. So it looks like I have some that are missing here. So I'm gonna use my simple scrub. That's a personal one. I can tell the globals from the teams from the personal. So I could go in and I could select the definition I wanted to apply. I would load it. It's going to tell me up here which one I have loaded. And then I'm able to go in and select the file that I want to scrub. So I can go in, I could choose the file that I want to scrub. Maybe I want to scrub several with that same definition. I could certainly, choose those and decide, okay, I want to line these up and I want to run all of these right now. I could open that. They're lined up to be processed, and then I can process them. So once they're done, I have the ability to view my results. So I can go and, view my report. So I can view my report. That's going to open it up in an HTML format. And this was probably not a good example to choose, but because it was just a simple scrub. But it's going to tell me what happened during that scrub, both at a high level, whether it kept it, whether it cleaned it, whether it was completely removed, whether it was changed. And then in fact, let me use a different example on this report. Let's try one of these ones. Oh, no, those ones were testing that I was doing. So I guess I'm going to have to go with what I have. As I scroll down, if I have the definition that's running on it, it will say enabled here. And as I get down here, and it will give me either a warning, a green saying nothing happened, nothing changed. It's going to tell me if I had changes by giving me this warning or something similar, or a red that shows the change on it. And then it's going to show me the definition, how I had it defined, and it's going to give me all the changes that were made. So on this simple scrub, I appended, or I prefixed my project code types. I rolled down my activity code types. I removed my resource codes. So I've done a number of different things in here with that simple scrub, and it's telling me every change that was made or not made for that matter. So if it kept the same, it's going to say that as well. So if I'm satisfied with what my definition did with my project, I can then download the results. So when I download, of course, I can, let me make sure I'm in the right place. I can save this, and it's going to bring down two items. It's going to bring down my scrubbed file, so the clean file, if you will. Um, and it's going to have appended it with the date and time that it was scrubbed. It's also going to give me an HTML copy of the report that we just looked at. So if I wanted to share all of the report out to maybe I'm giving feedback to a contractor on how they measured up to the specifications that I wanted, I could certainly share pieces or parts of that as well. Now, the last thing I want to show you is when we import. I've already have some items that are imported here, and it looks like I have a filter. Let me go and open a different layout. And let's go to this scrubbing one. Oh, post scrub, that's what I want. And when I import, what it's going to do is it's going to give me some indicators showing me the things that have changed at that level, as well as it's going to give me a another a notebook with that report that we have in here. And you can see a little bit easier some of the things that were handled on this particular one. Um, it'll show me that accounting, and then as I go down, it's going to show me exactly what happened with each one of those scrubs. And then again at the project or at the activity level, it's going to give me some more granular information with those indicators. Now I can choose whether I want to have those indicators come in with my report, or whether, maybe I don't want to look at those indicators and I just want to take those out at that point. It's if I don't want these indicators, I can choose not to bring them in with my XCR, be created. But it's going to give me some feedback on what was cleaned. All of my vendor codes look really great. I have my work types. I had some changes in here that it's alerting me that I don't have these in. Maybe I want to take a look at these. Maybe I scrubbed something out and actually do need maybe some values in there. Or maybe it's found that this is a brand new one, and it's just alerting me to the fact that this was created, and that I allowed that to come in. So we've got those types of things that are available for when you import your project. So I see that I'm running out of time, so I apologize. I just get so excited. I just start talking and talking. So, I guess if there are any questions, I should probably address those now so that we can get
Yeah.
wrapped up. I don't want to run long. I apologize for that.
No, it's good. I probably interrupted you too much. Well, we don't have any questions right now, so hopefully
Okay.
that means it was clear and people could follow what we were doing there. So why don't I take it back and do the
Okay.
wrap up? Okay, so I'll take it back and I'll do the wrap up. So hopefully you saw, why we built it, and the extra level of functionality that we bring with the scrubber that we just don't have in P6. It brings a different level of granularity there. Let me share the PowerPoint and just finish up. So we took a look, we did the deep dive. Sue showed you the simple scrubbing, the different layers of scrubbing that we have in the tool. Is my PowerPoint showing, Sue? Oh, I did it wrong. Let me broadcast it. That would help. Okay, here we go. And then what we want to do is we want to run through how important this is. So hopefully you got the gist of it, and the different features that we've got. So it's very, very flexible. And although she didn't explicitly show you a Microsoft project file being scrubbed, all those features work with a Microsoft project file as well as an XML file. So, this is just one of many tools that we have for P6. We've got P6QA, P6 Calculator, P6 Loader, which loads Excel files in and out so you can manage all your data. I'm missing some. We've got taps and caps, which are updating tools. So we've got a lot of tools that we've built over the years that can really help your team. So definitely check out our webinar series, see if there's any that you want to jump in on, and feel free to join any of those. So someone's asking about pricing. So the price varies. The way we sell this tool is per scrub. It's a package. Okay, so we have some clients that are on unlimited packages for yearly unlimited, and then some that just need a few, so they buy the starter kit, the 5-pack. So it varies, but it's from $100 down per scrub. Okay, so it really depends. So it's not per user. You can share it to as many users as you feel comfortable with, but it's per project scrub. Okay, so if you're interested, definitely let us know and reach out that way. And I'll just throw a quick question up. If there is some follow-up you'd like us to do, go ahead and tag it here. That just helps us know how to keep in touch. So hopefully you got some good ideas out of this, and follow up with us if you have any additional questions. I've got Sue's email there on the PowerPoint, so you can follow up that way. If you're in the more of the Asia Pacific region, we also have Donna Ureta, who's in that area, so I'll put up her email as well. It sometimes is easier, depending on your time zones, to communicate with Donna. Okay. Very good. So thanks so much for joining. I think I'll stop the recording here.